Hey everybody, welcome to another edition of American Rambler. I am your host, Colin. Thank you for listening to the podcast. On today's show, I have historian James MacDonald. James is a professor of history at Northwestern State University of Louisiana. That is in Nackadish, Louisiana. James and I go a ways back. We go back to my first year of grad school. It was not James's first year of grad school. He already had his master's degree, but it was our first year of the PhD program. And James and I were the only ones that graduated with a PhD, as far as I know, or at least from LSU, we were the only ones. But as these things go, it's been a while since I've seen James. It was whenever last time I was in Baton Rouge studying there, I guess 2005. James finished a little after me, and we did keep in touch a little bit after we graduated through emails and whatever, but I haven't seen him since I left Baton Rouge. And James is not on social media. We're going to talk about that. He's not on Facebook or Twitter or Instagram. But I knew he was down there teaching Louisiana still. He's been there for a while now in Nackadish. And he is a teacher, no doubt about it. He teaches a lot of classes, both in terms of how many each year, but also in the variation in his classes, his American history classes. So he's got a lot of experience doing that. And certainly with COVID, things have changed for college professors. So we're going to talk a lot about teaching and, you know, what he's been through since he graduated from LSU. But, he's originally from New Jersey, and it's kind of funny when you talk to these Jersey guys. You know, they'll bust your balls a little bit, but they also are very complimentary. So James is going to bring up a few stories about me when I was in grad school, and you know, usually I don't like to talk too much about myself in these interviews, but James has a good memory, so he remembers some of our adventures in Baton Rouge, and it was great talking to him because it was kind of one of those classic catch-up sessions where you don't really feel like you missed a beat. Same way with Wayne Edmondson, who I had on the previous podcast. Wayne, another LSU friend of mine. So we're going to go back in time here, but it's not one of those, hey, do you remember when type of conversations, which, you know, Tony Soprano said is the lowest form of conversation. But we do reminisce a bit. But we do talk about our advisor, Charlie Royster, and what it was like being in grad school and how the profession has changed and how well we were prepared for grad school. Maybe not really in a lot of cases, but we got through it, and it was a good education. But if we had to go back and do things differently, I think we would. All right, here it is, me and James MacDonald.
When you invited me, I did a little research and listened to some of the early episodes, and it really evolved.
Yeah, the first few were pretty timid and quiet.
Yeah, you just sound like you were trying out for the to be on the NPR.
Right, I had
Saturday Night Live. Yeah.
I had the NPR.
Hi, this is Colin Woodward. I'm here in my parents' basement. I'm enjoying a glass of red wine that I took from a box in the fridge.
Yeah, it was 5 years ago, and
My goodness.
then I started doing them literally like standing up. I would stand up to do an introduction, and that actually kind of worked to project my voice like I was doing public speaking. But it's crazy, like some of the people I got first very early on. I mean, I think like I got James McPherson. He was like number 6 or something. It was crazy.
Yeah, I've gone through all the episodes. I haven't listened to obviously all of them, but it's pretty impressive.
Well, thank you.
You know, Rambler American, I thought, why did they name it after a car? But then it was American Rambler. You know, you first research and look for that and define the podcast I was like, the small car that AMC made in the 1960s?
Yeah, you're betraying your age there, I think.
Right.
But yeah,
I guess you could have called it 6 Degrees of Court Carney. I mean, that would have been a possibility also. People who know court.
Well, obviously, I've been going to the LSU well quite a bit. I don't know if I ever reached out to you. I apologize if I haven't. I thought maybe
I'm not on social media.
Well, there you go.
Of any kind, and I've heard a couple of your intros where you've talked about the lost people at LSU. I'm like, at one point, I hope he doesn't mention me by name, because I would definitely be one of them.
Yeah.
Just found my way where I am now, and I'm not on any of those social media things, and
well, good for
never
you.
was and never plan on it. I live vicariously through my wife's Facebook page, and she gives me updates on things that are happening with people I barely know or care little about, or if there's anything written about me on student concerns on the Facebook page, that watch out for his class. But other than that, no, I'm not tuned in. And some of the updates I saw just from people we've known and individuals, whether they be classmates or professors who have passed, I've been surprised to discover. So that was interesting to pick up that as well.
Yeah, well, I'm impressed at your ability to avoid social media pretty much entirely. I mean, you never did Facebook or anything?
I never did. No,
yeah.
No.
That's impressive. I am off Facebook now. I've been off maybe a year. I couldn't stand it anymore. And I'm on Twitter a lot. I don't necessarily tweet a lot, but it's really kind of my news feed. I wouldn't know what the hell was going on either in the news or in academia or pop culture, anything. I mean, I don't really watch much TV, and I mean, you know how the TV is. It's like the news is atrocious, but
pretty much.
But yeah, I do a little bit on Instagram. It's mostly Twitter. Instagram is kind of like Facebook, but you can avoid a lot of the crazy relatives because they don't know how to do it yet, or they don't you can't repost stuff on Instagram, so I think that's kind of the advantage there. But yeah, I guess I have to imagine that we maybe emailed a little bit like after I left, because I graduated May 2005. You finished early 2006, is that right?
Yes.
And what were you doing after you graduated? Because you've been in Nackadish for a while.
2007.
Yeah. So what were you kind of doing right after you graduated?
Well, I was lucky. I was on the job market in the spring, fall of 5 and early 6. And again, I wasn't joking with the whole 6 Degrees of Court, because he knew folks at UL Lafayette, and I had done some adjuncting when I was finishing up my dissertation.
Yeah. And
basically was contacted by the chair of the department, who said, hey, we have a visiting assistant for a year job here. And I thought, well, that's probably something I should take. And I asked around at LSU, and they said, yes, you should. So that was for a year. So I commuted from Baton Rouge to Lafayette 3 days a week. And that was a great gig. And the people there were fantastic. And then once again, right away, I was on the job market and was, I think, a finalist for like 2 or 3 jobs. And this is spring of 2007, and interviewed at Northwestern State, and almost forgot about it, because there was a really long job process at a college in Texas, and that started at the AHA in the December, over Christmas break of 2006, followed by a campus visit. And then I was, I guess, not chosen for that. And all of a sudden I get a phone call from Northwestern State, the chair of the department. And I thought, oh yeah, I did go up to Nackadish as well. And I remember you talking about, it's strange how these phone calls come in and at what times in your life the phone rings, and what you're doing and where you are. Well, I'm driving my wife to the hospital because her intestines essentially kind of crimped up like a garden hose.
Oh,
And so
geez.
we're going to, what is it? The hospital there out by O'Neill Lane in Baton Rouge. And so she's over in the passenger seat kind of, and I'm talking to, my future boss who says, we'd like to offer you the job. And I said, thanks. I'll talk with my wife who's, not in the best frame of mind. And, we talked about it, and I really wanted her to go up and see Nackadish. She'd never been up there before, and she was not able to really move. And a walk to the mailbox was an ordeal after she had that surgery done.
Wow.
And so she said, look, if this is a job you think you should take, then you should take it. So I ended up doing that in the spring of 2007. This is probably March, I think. And fall of 07 started up here in Nackadish, and I'm in year, I guess, 14 now.
Yeah.
Very fortunate, and there isn't a day that goes by that I don't recognize that if it's a year or so later, we're in the middle of the economic, whatever they're going to end up calling this, the Great Recession, and then the job market was awful after 2008.
Yeah.
So to sneak in, and then I'll tell you what, for 3 years I considered myself still on the job market because I thought, well, I'm the last one in. I'm probably going to be the first one out if we really start tightening the belt. And so I even applied to some places when I was here early on, but things settled down. We weathered the storm. The state kind of did something where they thought, let's hold everybody's head underwater. And whoever bobs up as far as a 4-year university, they might survive, and the rest may not. And most everybody did. We had to make some changes, but made it and survived. So
yeah,
it's a great thing to have a 10-year track job and then to go through the processes such as promotion twice and then tenure, obviously, and feel a lot more secure. And then, all these years later, feel a lot better about where you are.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I know what the process was for folks who are wanderers and nomadic existence of 1 year, 3-year appointments. So this maybe isn't where I thought I'd end up at the end of the day, but I'm happy to be here. My wife works here. We have a home, and we've made a life here. And so it's great.
Yeah, that's great. And your wife's name is Anna.
It is.
Yeah.
She is the at the library.
Yeah.
It's a bit of, you can imagine, it's a bit of a different setting since the spring.
Sure.
With everything that's happened. I'm really at the end of week 1 of classes coming back post whatever we're doing, not post COVID, but post COVID adjustment at least.
Yeah.
And can I say that? I mean, I know that on some things you can't use the actual words or you'll get demonetized. I mean, it's like YouTube. If you call this thing anything other than the given amount of the accepted terms, Yahoo will ban you or something like that. I've heard that.
No,
good.
No one's listening, so you have complete freedom to say whatever you want.
Thank goodness. No. I was telling a couple folks about this, and one thing they said was, don't say anything bad about where you work. I'm like, well, I don't really have anything this bad to say about where I work, but
yeah.
This has been a bit of a challenge, as you can imagine, since, March. I haven't seen some of my colleagues in 5 months. Prior to Monday, I hadn't seen students in 5 months.
Yeah.
And here we are we're teaching 3 different ways, if you can believe it. We're teaching online, and to this institution's credit, they have been ahead of the curve with online for years. I mean, when this was something that other people mocked and thought online, no one's going to take online classes.
Right,
they thought, well, we'll see about that. And so I've been teaching online for almost the whole time I've been here. The second method is we have kind of a synchronous where folks who are not coming to campus just set up some type of connection like this, but we're using Microsoft Teams, which is kind of like WebEx. It's because all the students have it. And they're synchronously teaching a class from, I guess their home, or they can come into the office if they don't want to be in front of students. And the third way is that we've kind of taken a class with with a given number of students, and we've split it and said half of you are coming Monday, half of you are coming Wednesday. The other half, those of you who are not in front of the professor, are home, and then we flip the class. And so the folks who are home on Monday come into class on Wednesday, and the folks who are in class on Monday stay home. Does that make sense? Or did I completely lose the whole? Okay.
I've heard certain places are doing that, and I'm
calling
guessing
it high.
Your classes
high
are
flex.
pretty small.
Well, they are, because fortunately, I mean, I could have a class of 70 to 80 in the survey class, the U.S. history, but what we did is we capped them so that we could, we literally measured the classrooms and said, how many students can we physically fit in here and maintain social distancing 8 feet from the professor? There's nothing, Colin, let me tell you, like lecturing from behind the sneeze guard from a salad bar buffet.
Right.
It's just, that's what you have. You have that hanging down in front of you, suspended by fishing line from the ceiling, while you're looking out at 21 students who all have to sit in a chair that has a friendly looking, our mascot's a demon, a friendly looking demon sticker. And you have to tell the students, I'm sorry, little Johnny, you may want to move over a row because we have to make sure that none of you are sitting too close together. So that's what we did to keep the face-to-face classes a reality. I don't know how long we'll be able to do this, to tell you the truth.
Right. Because you think students are just going to spread it no matter what.
They're having parties.
Yeah, right.
They're in the hallway. They have to wear a mask in the classroom. They have to wear a mask in the hallway. I have to go up the right staircase and down the right staircase. Otherwise, I'll have some math professor who's going to the 4th floor yell at me, "You're going the wrong way." I'm like, "I'm sorry." And, there's an entrance to the building and there's an assigned exit to the building.
Okay.
But we don't know what they're doing in the dorms. They're going around licking each other, or whatever students do when they're not, in class. And they've been home for 5 months, and they're all, missing hanging out with people their age.
Yeah.
And then they're scattered in the wind on weekends because they go home. This is very much a suitcase university.
Right.
And they return, and we do this all over again. So we recently stopped fall sports. Our respective conference made that decision before classes started. And I don't know. We have a procedure for reporting students who test positive, and we'll go from there. I don't know how long we can try to keep this going.
I agree. I work at Hampton-Sydney College now, and it's a small school, and every place is just kind of making stuff up on the fly. But they decided to go all in on in-person classes. And
really? Okay.
I work in the library, and up until now I've had the advantage of I have a couple offices upstairs, don't see a lot of people, don't see a lot of students, but they moved a bunch of classes to the library because they couldn't social distance in most of these buildings. Like they just don't have the space. So they moved a bunch of classes to the library. So like I'm in a situation now where there's way more students than there would normally be. Okay. And I agree. I think, the fraternities are huge on campus. I haven't been there that long, but before COVID, they don't know how to social distance anyway. Just breaking your personal space in weird ways. Like, I just have people wander into my office without knocking, without letting me know they're in there. So I think it's just a matter of time. And, UNC lasted a week. So I don't think we're going to make it till I don't know. They've had a plan where they split up the semester into essentially 2 semesters. So they're going to do 2 full courses until October 4th or whatever it is, and then do the final 2, October to December. But I would be very surprised if they make it to October at all. But it's a residential campus, so if they don't get that room and board money, they're screwed.
And that's what I'm sure is a concern for our folks over here.
Absolutely.
The president of our system, we're in the ULS system. There's the LSU system, and we're in the University of Louisiana system. He used to be the president of our university, and he was great here. A new guy, a lot of fresh ideas, but he didn't stay long, and he went on to become the system president. But he got on television in the spring and said, we're going to be open for face-to-face classes. And we thought, well, okay. We were all thinking that's great. Maybe.
Right.
So, and then you have to also consider that my colleagues in the department and around the whole university community, if you are not of good health or you can medically get away to not be on campus, they've been able to do that as well. So what they're doing is essentially saying, look, we want to teach the core classes face to face in this high flex. And then the upper level classes, I have a class on this morning that has 12 students. Well, we can social distance. So we can make that happen. In a room that fits 80, it's easy to put 12 students in front of you. And I've told the students repeatedly, if you don't feel like you should be here, if you don't feel good, for the love of God, don't come to class.
Yeah.
I mean, stay home, join the Teams meeting that I'm going to run because the university has told me, look, record your lecture in Teams. Teams is a connection like WebEx, but you can also toggle it to record what you're doing. And that way they can go back, even if they're not going to join synchronously with you, they can go back and watch the lecture later on. So there's a little bit of a learning curve there. There's some technological issues that we had for the first couple of days, but again, we'll make it work. I'm hoping for as long as it works until we're told, look, it's just gotten too bad. We're just going to have to shut things down like we did in March. And we're able to do that because most of us teach a combination of face-to-face and online. And so there were some things you had to deal with, like if you have face-to-face lectures, how do you switch to online lectures, and how do you switch from face-to-face exams to now online exams? So all of that had to be worked out from March onward. But we closed for 2 days, and LSU, as another example, closed for a week and then had their spring break and said, hopefully after 2 weeks we'll know what the hell we're doing with online.
Right.
Because some colleges aren't there yet with innovating with online. And for better or worse, I think it allowed some places to survive after 2007 and 2008. And by offering that combination and having whole degrees online, it's not great to do a seminar that should be face-to-face online, but you just have to do that and recognize your student populations and non-traditional students and cater to them.
Right.
And yet students will choose what they want. Students will gravitate towards an online class because they're self-disciplined and they can handle it. And other students, some of them, there's some pushback saying, I didn't sign up to go to college to do online in these kind of half-assed face-to-face classes, to which I say, we're trying. we're doing the best we can with all of this.
Well, so. I mean, obviously this is a really complicated issue, and campuses are so different. But for me, I work at a campus that's very residential, so they're in a bigger bind, I think, than other schools like yours or maybe bigger state schools where kids are commuting. I mean, if you're doing it online, it's kind of like, well, how much different is it going to be doing it online versus you come into class, big lecture, you take notes, you leave. There's never really much interaction with professors at a big school like LSU anyway. So
sure.
In terms of pedagogy, I mean, we're not making that huge of a leap. It's just more of kind of a technological leap and people getting used to it. And obviously there's expectations on everybody's part. I mean, with the students, obviously, and the professors. But I mean, as you well know, I mean, like graduate students, like you never see your professor. You don't want to see your professor. You just want to do your research. You want to do your writing. And I know that's different because it's grad school. But even with the big lecture classes, I mean, if you did all your lectures as a podcast and you had the students download them like once a week, they're getting the same information. I mean, it probably wouldn't be the same experience, but you know.
That's the issue. I mean, and I've told students in face-to-face settings, this lecture will be recorded, and I've recorded lectures because I've sometimes been broadcast with compressed video into other campuses. We have satellite campuses in other parts of Northwestern Louisiana, and I'll say, look, while this lecture is captured and will be posted on our online depository site, I don't know what y'all use over there, but we use Moodle. Okay. Blackboard, I guess, is another example.
Canvas is another one.
Yeah, okay, there you go. Yeah. So whatever version you have of that, and I'll say, but there's no substitute for being here. I said, when you're here, you're engaged and hopefully not distracted. I mean, I've tried to have a no electronic device policy. Wow, is that difficult?
Oh my God.
I mean, every day, put the phone away.
I know.
Really? Yes, you put the phone away. And same rule, different day.
Same people.
Same people.
Yeah.
The backpack in the seat in front of you blocking my view of you looking at the phone. Very clever. Put the backpack on the ground and then put the phone away. I'm not sure. I'm trying to convince them. When I started, Colin, notes and notebooks were still used, but then again, chalkboards still were. And then they converted everything to a smart classroom. And so you've got your notes now digitized, and you have PowerPoint, and sometimes you have a combination of PowerPoint with your notes. And that in some ways made it great. I didn't have to write my outline every day on the board, but at the same time, they stopped taking notes in 2008 or 9. I don't know when that happened.
Yeah.
And I try to tell them, I said, there is a magical connection between your brain and your writing device and a piece of paper that you can't replicate with typing into a tablet or to a notebook or to a computer. So I don't know. I've made some believers of some students, and others look at you like, why are you such a awful tyrant? I mean,
because you are.
Why? Because I am. I mean, why can't you use my phone in class? And I'm thinking, what are you doing here then?
Why do you need to be on why does anyone need to be on their phone in class?
You didn't hear this? If they don't check something within the 50-minute time period of my class, their head will explode.
Right.
You didn't recognize? Yeah. I tell the students.
Yeah, they're texting their shitty friends is what they're doing.
Right. And you're setting up your lunch plans, and I'm like, look, all of you do sleep. I mean, so there are probably 6 to 8 hours where you're not using your phone, and you still wake up the next day and the sun still rises in the east. So surely for 50 damn minutes, you can put that damn thing away. And for crying out loud, I'm not going to sell you on becoming a history major. I don't expect all of you to convert that way. but for God's sake, just listen to this story and try to be interested in it. And if you are, and you're connected and you're not distracted with your phone, you will do well. I promise you that.
Yeah.
But I tell you what, after 4 or 5 weeks, you're like, screw it. Let them use their phones. It's their money or someone's money. I mean,
I'm getting paid. What do I care?
Yeah, that's what my colleagues, some of them are. They're like, oh, a no phone policy, James? How's that working? I'm like, not well at all. And they said, yeah, because it won't work well, because it just teach to the ones who want to be there. And there's part of me that is not completely jaded and cynical that thinks I can reach all of them. But when you set yourself up, I mean, if you want me to cry or pull my entrails out while I try to make this point or set my hair on fire, I'll do it. I mean, to try to convince you that you control the ability to do well, even in the class that you may not like and think, oh, crap, I got to take a history class, or this is a core requirement for my major. I mean, but you can do it. You may not come out saying, from now on, when I pick up a book, it'll be a history book. I don't expect that. but
right.
The idea that you'll be able to maybe learn something and appreciate, what we're doing in the class. I don't know.
Right.
I'm trying to sell this subject.
Well,
students.
I think, people teach a million different ways, and some people are real control freaks and they have to have it a certain way in the classroom. But I think you're right. Like, after a certain point, you're just going to be banging your head against the wall if you're trying to get everyone not to look at their phone. You might just have to be like, well, as long as he's not playing music during class or something, like if he's quietly doing it, I can maybe live with that. But it is annoying. I mean, I've dealt with students on laptops, so I know who are, looking at God knows what.
Exactly.
So, but I don't really teach now, so I'm not up with the constant permutations of distraction, which is, I mean, the phone. You could say, no phones, but there's a few kids who are just gonna do it, and maybe you just try to not let them get to you. I feel like teaching, it's like stand-up comedy. It's like there's gonna be the people sitting in the front row with their arms crossed, not laughing. So you maybe got to play this table or the guys in the back who are enjoying it, but trying to get total control over a classroom, it's all but impossible. I think you should just say Jesus. Say Jesus wants you to put your phone away. I mean, it's North Louisiana. Maybe they'll respond to that.
Huh. All right. I can give that one a try. But there are a lot of keywords we're having to learn in college in 2020. I don't want to trigger anyone who is offended by my in a state university invoking JC's name.
That's true. That's true.
So you got to be careful about that. But yeah, I would be willing to try almost anything. But the first day, you just kind of lay it out for them, and every first class is getting a little longer with what you want to just talk about the syllabus and you're teaching philosophy, and the fact that I'm trying to undo, possibly for some of you, 12 years of school, of where you thought history was this, and this, rote memorization of dates and names. And I said, it's not that at all. And I mean, I'm sorry if you had someone named Coach who was your history teacher in high school, but this is a little bit different. And I don't know if they believe me at first. They're kind of skeptical about, well, that's just something he would say because he's the professor of the class. And when you talk about the examinations and how you ask the questions and how cause and effect are important and how and why, and they're like, nah, he's going to ask me what year this thing happened and then give me 4 choices. And I'm like, no, that's sadism. That's not history. That's a parlor game to memorize the dates. So they're kind of looking at you like, I don't know. And then they get the first test down, and then they're kind of like, all right, maybe he wasn't really just blowing smoke that first day.
Right. So you teach a little of everything there in terms of American history. Are you kind of
holy cow? Yeah, I do. I started, with the first half, and gosh, I think my first couple of years I taught the second half, which I was not at all able to handle. But I followed the golden rule of teaching survey history for the part you don't know. It's prep your lectures out of the best textbook and then assign the second best. And so literally for the second half of U.S. history, Civil War to present, that's what I did. And eventually, we had enough folks to handle the second half that I'm exclusively, for the most part, doing the first half. And yeah, everything. They threw some upper level classes my way. We had a couple colleagues who retired or passed away, and I kind of inherited those classes. The upper level, we have 4,000 level class, 3,000 and 4,000 level. So everything from the Old South, the Revolution. We have strange names for our classes. The Jackson class is called American Expansion and Sectional Conflict, 1836 to 1865. And I'm thinking, well, okay, maybe I should at some point change the name of that class. But hey, it still sounds pretty good.
Yeah.
So we could call it Jackson and the Antebellum United States, but I'm like, let's just run with this.
Yeah.
And so every content class at one point from colonial up to the Civil War, Old South, Atlantic comparative slavery. I teach the methods, the capstone class, which is what seniors take, their research class, the big paper they have to write. I've been doing that one for a while.
Yeah.
So basically, yeah, last fall, I kind of helped a colleague and taught the second half of U.S. history, and ooh, that was tough. I mean, I had to jump right in with the robber barons and the labor unrest.
Oh yeah.
And I thought and I looked at my notes and I realized it had been 10 years since I taught this, and it was rough for a little bit, but we got through it.
It's weird. When I was teaching, I mean, it wasn't for very long, but like, I guess I consider myself more of an early American guy, but I enjoyed teaching the post-Civil War much more, and maybe
okay.
It was just more relatable, because I think students sometimes just have a hard time with the early 19th century because it's so different from what they're used to now. But I think after Reconstruction, you can kind of start making more connections with modern life and everything. But if you haven't taught it, yeah, I mean, that's the trick, right? Is like pretending you know what you're doing the first day of class and just being like, all right, let's get into this, and hope they don't know, right?
Right. And the more the set schedule for teaching the first half, what do we used to call it at LSU? 221? Was it like 221 and 222? I want to say, were the divide in the first half and second half of U.S. history. I was a teaching assistant with bitter Bob Becker for a while, and
is he still around?
You know what? Not at LSU.
I mean, is he still
alive? I don't know. I thought everyone on the face space or the fritter or whatever they call it would know that.
Talk about off the grid. I mean, that guy, he probably was like,
right. And if he is, he may not want anyone to know that he's still around, because he headed west after he retired.
Yeah, he did.
And but yeah, as well, I learned a lot of how to teach from him. Even though when I had to teach for him, he would give me his lecture notes, and they were like all these like inside jokes about the Nixon administration. It's like this happened under Andrew Jackson's watch, just like John Dean. And I'm like, what is he talking? Like, oh, that's right. He wrote these lectures in the 1970s.
Right.
And now it's 2002, and he shuffles this wad of yellow legal pads at me and says, yeah, just make sure you cover this. I'm like, okay.
Well, at least he gave you his notes. I mean, Charlie Royster didn't give me anything. I had to teach a couple classes for him, and it went fine. But, I mean, he had notes. I never actually looked at his notes. I don't think he probably changed his notes either after, like, 1983. I mean, at least with the Civil War class. I think, you know, in seminar, that's a different story. But, yeah, Bob Becker, I heard this, I don't know if it was you or for someone else, when it came to African Americans, there were, like, he had, I hate to say this, I'd heard he originally had Negro, then crossed out and put black, and then had African American in his notes.
That is probably very likely, and shows you the change of the time period.
That might be an urban legend. I didn't, you know, that was like secondhand maybe, or.
Well, I'll tell you what. I remember when he had multiple sections of I think, what's it, 221. I want to say that number sticks out, but whatever the first half of the U.S. history was at LSU, he had multiple grad assistants, and he would say, I'm going to be out of town, you know, Jim. And I said, please call me James. And he'd say, sorry, Jim. And so yeah, I know. So I would go to the other sections and the other grad students who were his graders and TAs. And I'd said, look, Dr. Becker's going to be out. Do you want me to just cover your class? Before I even finished saying that, or asking the question, they say yes. And so I would go in, and if that meant I teach 3 times in a day, I'm thinking, I don't mind. I got to brush up on this, and I'll maybe get better at it every time. But yeah, I took the opportunity as much as I could to get in front of a class, and it's amazing the notes you have when you're right out of school. You prep these lectures for the first time, and I can show you my lecture notes from when I first got here and how they've changed and how they've been abridged. I'm going to use a generous term.
Dumbed down would be.
No, I'm not going to say that, because that's That's a derogative term, Dr. Woodward. So we're going to just say amended, changed, updated.
Very, very well put.
Okay, but it's a reflection of what you have to do as far as the speed you think you can move along, and meaning the reality of, okay, these students have no background in the colonies.
Right.
I mean, none.
Right.
Or if they did, it was a long time ago when they got anything before 1865. And so, you said it's easier to teach 1865 to the present. Yeah, because you got 100 and something years. I've got 400 to cover.
That's true,
not
too.
for nothing. I make this observation to students. I'm saying, really what we should consider is taking U.S. history in 3 parts. And that probably isn't good news for the students, but maybe you only require to take 1. But it seems to me a bit strange that we have this divide of 1865 to the present. And I mean, how do you just skip and rush through colonization and, the different parts of the world, Africa, Europe, and the Americas in 1400, and then say, all right, in 15 short weeks, everybody, we're going to get to Appomattox.
No, I know. Well, it's
fasten your seatbelts.
Okay, we got to cover 75 years today. It's funny because when I was at Virginia State, they were having an opposite conversation about doing the U.S. History Survey as a 1-semester class. So you go from Jamestown to, the Gulf War in one semester. But, my 2 cents was something like, well, one practical issue with that is like textbooks. I mean, textbooks are usually divided into 2 parts. So, I mean, do you want to give them 2 textbooks for a 1-semester class? I mean, that's going to be a lot of material to cover. And they say, well, you do it in World Civ. And I was like, this is America, damn it. This is America. And but it's like, okay, I mean, I guess that's valid, but I also think what you're saying is valid, is splitting it up into chunks that are more manageable, and like stopping in at 1836 rather than try to get through the Civil War.
Right. I mean, where do you stop in the second half of U.S. history? When I taught it, I would get to 1965 or so, the infancy of the Vietnam War. I mean, you go beyond that to me, and you're almost in current events. I mean, yeah, you could cover the 70s and the Reagan Revolution, but for me, I thought, well, let's just come full circle. We started with Reconstruction, and now we're really effectively ending with the second Reconstruction, the Voting Rights Act, the Civil Rights Act, and we started a class by the promise of what was going to be fulfilled because of the Civil War, and it only took 100 years for anything like that to take place. But and my colleagues say, well, I kind of get to like 1980 or about the same place. So I'm thinking, well, you've got 130 years to cover, and meanwhile, every semester I'm at the end, and the last day of class, like, okay, everybody, the Civil War in 50 minutes. Ready?
Right. So, yeah.
And then you're not even, and you're just, in a corner in your office sobbing later because you're like, I can't believe I actually did that. It's such a travesty to go that quickly. I mean, secession to Appomattox.
Yeah.
Let's go. What do I leave off and what can I cover? And it's just, you run out of time.
Right.
And every semester is the same push to think, well, I need to trim somewhere. I just can't bring myself to trimming anywhere with any significance. And oh well.
Yeah.
That's what makes it interesting.
Yeah.
It's a living process. I'm still learning. This is you're talking to a student who just happens to be in the front of the room. And so it's evolving all the time. I mean, you change your textbooks, in the upper level classes, you read. I mean, at our institution, unlike others, LSU, we read course evaluations, and we had in mind, if there was a backlash from students, you change the book and you change the topics and testing methods, and all of that develops, and ideally to make you better. So that's what's, for me, part of the process.
Yeah.
And, you know, I have a lot of practice at it because they heave a lot of classes at me every semester.
Do you still have a 4.4?
4.4. I don't remember the last time I had a 4.4. No, I have
Is it 5.5?
this academic year. Well, yeah, that's what it starts out as, Colin.
Oh,
but
shit.
I'm at a, let's see, if we started back to the last fall was a 6.5. From the fall of 19 to spring of 20, I had 5. I've got 6 now. I start with 4 because I'm the coordinator of the department, so I get to, which means nothing. It is a title without any any authority, without any money.
Oh,
but
gosh.
it's the person who arranges the schedule, who coordinates the recruiting events, and handles things like when we change the curriculum. But so I'm supposed to get a course release, but I've got 2 overages already because it's just the way the semester is.
Yeah.
So you know, last fall a year ago, I had 5, and I think I added a 6 because we had a colleague had some health problems, so I had to jump in and teach. In the 4th week, I ended up taking over the second half of U.S. history. I had to walk through our you know, this. I don't know if you all are going through this QEP. Maybe it's some of the other institutions. It's the experiential learning process for students. And so we have to change the curriculum for that. And so I had to draft all of that and change the classes for a couple of our upper level offerings. And so all that happened. Last fall was pretty awful. and then spring, and you're like, wow, it's got to get better in the spring, and then it's get better.
No.
And then you know, from March on, I'm here in the man cave recording lectures on debut and spending 3 hours editing closed captioning and then posting it on our, you know, online depository or whatever you want to call it, Moodle. There's nothing like staring at your computer lecturing. It's just wonderful, and you know, you can't go on campus. Yeah. Anyway, so
wow,
that's all right.
Well, you know, you've always been a teacher. I mean, when you were in grad school, you did a lot of teaching. But
yeah, I tried to.
Let me, and I paid off, obviously, but let me just kind of go back to the beginning a little. Why did you decide to get into this racket, the history racket? I mean, when, you know, I met you at LSU, you already had your master's. You're the only one other than me that finished with a PhD. So
is that right?
Yeah.
Okay. I've lost track. You know, I was listening to you talk about to Chris.
Right.
And he was, and literally when I heard some of your early podcasts, I started to go back and go around the room of our seminar room.
Yeah.
And I noticed 2 things. The one, I couldn't remember everyone's name. Secondly, I don't really know where they all landed, except with you and yeah, that was the super seminar.
I was fairly close to Rory O'Connor.
Yeah.
But then he left, and again, off the grid. I think he's still he works in D.C. He works with the Navy in some capacity. Okay. So I haven't heard from him since he left, pretty much. And there were 3 or 4 people who dropped out after a year. Okay. And it was you, like, by year 3, I think it was just you, me, and Rory, and maybe Jeff. You remember Jeff?
I do. I think he didn't finish, did he?
He made it to the dissertation phase, so he must have been there at least 3 or 4 years, but I think once he was ABD, he kind of just disappeared.
Well, I remember he was, I want to say, either adjuncting or just on as an instructor at, of all places, LSU Alexandria, I want to say.
Right, I think he lived up there.
Okay, and this is several years back, kind of the last I heard about him. So, but no, going back to your question, yeah, I was able to, you know, not do, I think the first year, second semester, we had kind of a research seminar. And I had a thesis and a master's, so I was able to skip that and get to work on we had to have 2 outside, or a minor field and an outside field.
Right.
So I was able to get started on that, and I was doing Tudor and Stuart England with Victor Stater, and then I got involved in those never-do-wells over in political science.
Yeah.
Political theory.
Well,
and you fell in with that crowd over there.
I was thinking of your crew because you kind of ran with the poli-sci people like Morgan Null
Sure.
and.
Oh my God, Morgan! I saw him at my friend from, when was that? How long ago was that? I'm probably dating myself here. Maybe 2010.
Okay.
My friend from grade school got married in the D.C. area. He works at HHS, and there was Morgan, I guess that's the last. And he was Morgan being Morgan, yeah.
Oh.
And some of those poli-sci folks, and I think Morgan even had a brief time in academia before he left it as well.
He never finished his dissertation, did he?
He did not. No, he did not.
I never met him. I don't think.
But the legend lives.
No, I know. Well, he was kind of a legendary guy, and I mean between like him and Chad Vanderford being in the same room at the same time, I was
gosh,
holy
Chad,
shit.
yeah.
And of course, Chad died a couple of years ago.
I saw that in one of the brief blurbs there in one of your podcasts.
Yeah,
and
I'm trying to.
And I was trying so hard to put a face to that name, and it took me a while to do that. But I remember the name because it was unique, and then I thought, wow, this must have been very young, and that's surprising.
Yeah, and I'm not really sure
happened.
what happened there. I made some inquiries, but I think even people in the department didn't know.
Okay.
So that was pretty sad because, I mean, he's a brilliant guy. I mean,
oh yeah,
I couldn't believe it. Yeah, I mean, God, it's like you hit your 40s, man. Just things start happening to people, and it's kind of scary. But
it's true, yeah. Because I had that in grad school, I was working too, just so I didn't drown myself in student loans, and that's probably why I took a little bit longer to get everything done. But I was grad assistant, teaching, working a little bit, and probably too much, but. And I ran into some people over in that side, and mentioning Chad, one of them we work with, he just went to sleep one night and didn't wake up. I mean, this was someone who had to be in their 30s, and it's surprising. It's like you said, you get to that age where, these kind of things can happen, and I guess you're shocked by it, but maybe it just happens. It's life. It's unfortunate.
Well, and you don't really know what the hell's going on with people either. I mean, they might have an underlying condition or who knows what, but sometimes just shit happens, and
it does.
We all know somebody close to us where that is. It's either happened quick or it's been a longer process. But no, I mean, life is short, and I mean, with this COVID now, it's just kind of horrifying what's happening across the country. But without getting into that, you're originally from New Jersey, right?
Yeah, New York City born, New Jersey raised.
Okay.
Yeah.
What part of Jersey?
We're in the big city. I was in Monmouth County. I was in a small town, maybe 3,000 people. So I was located in between the shore and Trenton. So I could get to the capital 45 minutes. I could get to at least directly straight shot east to the beaches.
Yeah.
And maybe an hour and a half from New York City. I mean, to get to the big city, you would go to Philadelphia, where I lived. So smack dab in the middle of the state. A lot of people will expect me to talk either like an extra on The Sopranos or the Jersey Shore. And so when I have kind of I would say maybe a more neutral accent, they're kind of surprised. But yeah, in between those areas, when you're not near, the New York area, there are some nice areas of it. And I haven't been back there since forever. I mean, my family moved to, I guess when I was at LSU, they were just the next year they moved to Carolina.
Yeah.
And so they were there for, and my mom moved actually to our town last year. So she's in Nackadish.
Oh, good.
Surprises a lot of people who would say things like, well, you'd moved from North Carolina to Louisiana? And she said, yeah. And she kind of likes it here for reasons known only to her. But, I mean, a couple summers haven't scared her off, and she's close to us, which is great.
Yeah.
But, no, I just kind of gradually moved south. My undergrad was at Delaware, and that was an hour and a half from where I lived. So it was where I could get home if I wanted to, but I was still on campus. And then I moved to Carolina to go to graduate school at Appalachian State, and that's in the mountains there in Boone. And then, like a lot of folks, you find in graduate school, all right, this is the book I like. Who wrote this book? If I want to get a doctorate, where is this person who wrote this book teach? And for me, that was Royster, and that's how I made LSU a first choice.
It was the first book about the Continental Army.
Right, revolutionary people at war.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so growing up in Jersey, did you ever go to the battlefields or anything? I don't know how old you were when you moved, but... Sure.
No. I lived there through college. So, I mean, I moved out of New Jersey really to go to my master's program. So, I would have been 22. I lived a 15-minute drive from the Monmouth Battlefield State Park. It wasn't a national park. It was a state park. So, yeah, that was a place where there wasn't a lot of battlefield stuff to it, like you would go to a national park and see monuments and markings and trails. It was more of a recreational park. But you could see a lot of the topography of the battlefield. And I always was interested in reading history as kind of what I would read for fun. And my family vacations were like a who's who of historical places. I mean, my parents never had the nerve to say, wonder why you went into history. Well, let's go through our vacations, shall we? Valley Forge, Gettysburg, Yorktown, Colonial Williamsburg, Boston. I'm thinking... Yeah, if you all weren't training, a historian, I don't know what you all were doing, but they just thought these were places that we'd be interested in.
Yeah.
And certainly was. And I never had a problem getting in front of people to speak. And I tried to teach, even in high school. I would hit my teachers up to try to get in front of the class and do something. And I think it worked out okay. And that was a great place to grow up. It's not what you think of traditionally as New Jersey. It's horse country.
Right.
It's spread out. It's rolling hills. You can get to either city fairly quickly. And I haven't been back. I mean, I was in the New York area when we flew out when we went to Italy, but the Northeast I haven't been back to. And I've lived in the South, it's as much as I've lived in the North.
Yeah,
I guess.
Yeah,
I mean, more than half my life.
I think that's about where I'm at now. I mean, I went to LSU and I was 22, and I'm 45 this year, and I had like a little over a year up at Smith College, but then moved back into the South. So yeah, I mean, it's been at least half. Yeah, you just kind of settle into it, I guess. I mean, I still have kind of a love-hate relationship with the South, but my wife, met her here, and my kids were born in Arkansas, which is pretty funny, but it has obviously some opportunities for people like us that do history. But it's funny what you're talking about. Like, you could sort of hit Civil War stuff and revolutionary stuff fairly easily because you're in Jersey, but like where I grew up, it was all about the Revolution. I mean,
sure.
I don't remember really learning very much about the Civil War till I was like a sophomore in high school. So it was like Boston, just kind of swallowed up everything in New England in terms of the history and all that. But you were kind of dead set on the Revolution, or was it just kind of Charlie's book? You're like, okay, I'll go to LSU.
I was, as an undergrad, when did I start college? 91. When does the Ken Burns thing come out? 91, 92? The
I
Civil
think
War?
It was 90, actually. So
okay, so everyone and their cousin is getting involved in Civil War history, and I thought that's what I would do if I was going to go on to graduate school and study history and make that my career calling, whatever you'd like to classify it. But I always had an interest in the colonies and the Revolution, the founding era. And so it wasn't like I wrestled over it much. I just thought, well, this is interesting as well. And hopefully I'll be able to stay involved in researching and learning and teaching the Civil War era. But truly the founding era just had an appeal to me. And when I went to grad school in North Carolina, I was near a lot of Revolutionary War battlefields in the Carolinas, and so I was interested in the campaigns and just the way the war took a very different course, in the American South and in the frontier or the western areas of the American South. And so I kind of came back to that. But yeah, it's just strange the way it works out. I mean, you stumble across opportunities. The things I've been able to write about and research came about from picking up something to read and then getting contacted by folks and saying, hey, we need a book chapter on this. You want to do it? And so I'm kind of all over the place if it means that I can present on an area that I don't know too much about, or I'm not really locked into one area. I still would like to get back. I mean, my dissertation was on a Revolutionary War topic, and I'd maybe like to get back to it, but I haven't done much with it since I finished it and shelved it. And one day maybe I will. I'll dust it off and you know, you pick up books on the field that you're interested in, and you're like, wow, here's a book on North Carolina during the Revolution, and you see your dissertation as a footnote, and you're like, okay, wow. And then you see it like a couple times, and you're thinking, yeah, people actually know it exists. Maybe I should do more to kind of let it see the light of day.
Yeah.
And I don't know. And then you go to Oh, this is funny. Then you go to Wikipedia and you Google the main topic of your Google, and it comes up Wikipedia, I should say, of your topic, and then you are the main source in the Wikipedia article, and you're like, uh-oh, I don't know if that's a badge of honor or something I should run away from, but some obscure topics, I don't know how that connection is made. All of a sudden I look at the bottom footnotes and I'm like, wait a minute, that's my dissertation.
Yeah.
So how the author of this article found it for some reason, and they did, and it's like, oh, all right, well, you know,
yeah,
that's nice.
It's sort of like, I mean, even if this guy was taking like chunks out of the dissertation word for word, he took the time to create a Wikipedia page about my guy, you know? It's
right.
Pretty cool.
Exactly.
I'm not saying he plagiarized it, but like, no, I mean, it's very flattering when people...
No, there's a footnote, which is more than I can say for some students in a given semester. They don't even try sometimes.
Yeah.
But,
yeah, okay, so, yeah, you want to work with Charlie, and
right.
he let you. He didn't let everyone be his student, so...
Right, well, he was very hands-off.
Sure.
So I didn't get a lot of write your notes on a 5x7 and not a 3x5 note card.
No.
Or kind of micromanaging about that. We would check in. At the end, he had some health problems.
Right.
And it was good enough of a previous guest, Mark Thompson, to come in and help finish and really get after me about the writing and to focus me on the argument and the committee to get it done. And so, it was a good experience. I mean, LSU was a good experience, I have to say. And, but yeah, he would, want updates and see how you're going, but to demand like chapters and everything, you were on your own. I mean, you had to be self-disciplined, and for better or worse, that ABD process you can really get lost sometimes, and you have to get always kind of rooted back into, all right, you know, produce something now, and you have to stop the research.
Absolutely.
And then sit down and write it. He would say things like, you know, the best dissertation is a completed dissertation. I'm like, yeah, I know, thank you. And
I didn't believe that though. That's sort of the cliche, and like it's a grad school joke or professor joke, but like, I did not want to leave myself open to a Gaines Foster or a Bill Cooper just kind of like eviscerating it. And they were always nice to me. I'm not saying that might have happened, but I wanted it to be as good as it can be. And right. I mean, I was cutting tons of shit from it. I mean, it was I could have just kept going and going. But yeah, obviously you have to know when to stop. Obviously funding has a lot to do with it. If you're running out of funding, you've got to wrap it up. But yeah, Charlie got sick, and it was like spring of 2005, so you were pretty close to being done then. I mean,
close to being done.
Yeah.
He was I mean, touch and go. I mean, he
really
used to come in the books, I mean, the Barnes and Noble, where you know, I was working, and you see a lot of professors over that way on that side of town, and for a while I was like, oh my goodness. And I'm thinking, what happens if, this doesn't go well with him? But, he rallied. And then I learned, when did he pass, Colin?
It was, I think, February of this year. And
my goodness. Is he in Baton Rouge?
He was in the area.
When Gaines joined the committee, I thought, okay, now I know it's going to be, a strong finished product. And they all went over it really well, the dissertation. And one of your intros to your podcast said something about him being underrated. And I thought that is very, very true.
For Gaines?
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, the whole historiography thing, which I thought was almost overwhelming when I was in the class, until you go out and do what we're doing now and realize that this is an LSU thing. I mean, LSU, some of my colleagues who were at Northwestern, while I got there and have since passed, they always maintain, they said, this is what LSU does. It's historiography and prepping you on the history of the subject. And that's a course they've always prided themselves with. So to have it, and to, I guess, Gaines probably inherited it from someone else, and to take it over and run with it, it's just, that was a challenging class. But man, when you get out there and you teach a class, every one of my classes that's an upper level, I spend the first day, if not week, on historiography.
Oh yeah.
And say, this is why the history of this subject matters. You all need to know the 4 major schools of thought on the American Revolution, about how it was written in the past, and how one was very patriotic and one was economic and one was imperial. So that just really laid the groundwork. And, it for me, it was a continuation of my master's program, because they were super big on that at Appalachian State. So I came to LSU and I was prepared. I was prepared for, Royster and other people's kind of tough love when it came to the seminar, because, I mean, my main advisor at Appalachian was kind of like that too. I mean, at the time, I was a second master's thesis student ever, because it was a school that produced a lot of masters without a thesis. People would take the extra hours. And I think the one who came before me was, did you cross paths with Rob Outland over at LSU?
Oh, sure, yeah.
Yeah, he literally was the other student. So we came out of the same master's program, and I was a second student who was under Tim Silver at Appalachian State, and he's still there, I believe. It's pretty recently I checked.
Okay.
And so we went from Appalachian to LSU, and the first thing he wanted to know, Dr. Silver at Appalachian, when I came back, is how do we prepare you? And I said, very well. But it's tough. It's rigorous. Getting through the first semester of the super seminar with who was that? Dr. Lewis and Dr. Royster in the fall semester.
Right.
I believe that's the combination that we had. So
yeah.
But absolutely, I'm in total agreement over Gaines Foster and the amount of information he was throwing on us was in some ways it seems staggering, but looking back with all these years past it was just a great experience. I mean, for me at least.
Yeah, I mean that first year was rough, but Gaines doing that historiography class, I mean, he was just brilliant in that classroom, and I couldn't do it like that. I mean, I don't know how many times he did it before he taught us,
sure.
But you're teaching that class at most maybe once a year, and
right.
I mean, just what we were getting on our plate, and it was. I think they've maybe restructured it. Maybe they do the historiography class the second year now, because I did feel a bit like I was getting the cart before the horse sometimes, because I didn't know who the hell these guys were. I mean, I didn't really have a very solid background in American history. That sounds weird, but especially with that deep historiography of like Kulikov and Marxist, examinations of colonial Virginia. I was like, what the fuck is this? Like, I was
right, Tobacco and Slaves. that classic, yeah.
Oh my god.
You had to read that one for comps. Woo. Yeah. Slave Counterpoint, Philip Morgan,
Oh,
right?
gosh.
All that stuff that you had to put on your bibliography.
Oh, there's
Be
this.
familiar
Have
with
you
it.
ever? I should send you this if you've never read this. It's Peter Cochlinus, that historian.
Yes.
He wrote this great review of Slave Counterpoint, and it's like 8 pages long, but it's just really funny and really smart. If it's not online somewhere, I should just mail it to you. But it's one of the best reviews I've ever read. It's because it's such a huge book, and so he would kind of like, as an aside, every now and then in the review, he'd say, Slave Counterpoint, 4 pounds or whatever, like the book literally weighed, because it's like 800 pages long. But
I'm literally trying to find it. I'm sitting in my room, my office at home, and I'm looking at the bookcases, and this is a mess because I've got books stacked everywhere, but
Right.
I'll never read them. There it is. Yeah, there it is.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
It's a big one.
It's giant. Yeah. It's
a great book.
thicker.
But
Well, it's sitting stacked next to Tobacco and Slaves. Interestingly enough.
there you go.
So they share a place of honor on the bookcase.
That's all you need on the colonial era. Kulikov and
Yeah.
Morgan.
Pretty much. Maybe something on Salem, but I don't know. Whatever book you want to pick on that. Yeah.
But it was. I mean, I don't think I'll ever feel that way again. The way I felt that first year. I mean, it's just full immersion. It was like being in the Marines or something. It's just like boot camp. And if you kind of come out of that first year and you still want to do it, I think you're in pretty good shape. Because
Sure.
I had fun once I was ABD, and actually after that, the first year was the roughest. I mean, other aspects of it were really rough, but I think that first year was the most monastic and kind of lonely.
Oh, sure.
Period.
Yeah, I remember. The weekly social interaction besides going to class or seminar was, I got to get groceries.
Yeah.
So
Literally.
you're literally like, well, okay, I'm going to go out and then go back to see wherever I live and just keep reading because I have to read 4 books this week.
Right.
So right.
Yeah.
But no, I just it was immersion exactly, but it's what you have to do. I mean, do you want a doctor to operate on you who kind of just winged it? I mean, I try to explain this to students because a lot of our students are first generation and they're kind of like, are you really a doctor? I'm like, well, no. I mean, I can't, tell you about, your sore throat or anything like that. But, it's a doctorate. Okay. Cause they kind of think it's almost honorary. Like you happen to teach at a university, so you're a doctor. It's like, no, I have a PhD and, I don't expect them to kind of genuflect like they did in olden times where we all wore the robes with the 3 things on the sleeve. But I mean, but at the same time, well, I could pass along my emails and the level of informality would absolutely turn your stomach.
Well, you should say, yeah, I'm a doctor and I was in school longer than actual medical doctors are.
And I'm like, yeah, and I don't have to carry malpractice, so there. Or I don't make some argument about the PhD actually predating the MD, but I don't know. That might be splitting hairs.
Yeah,
but
doctors only found out about germs about 130 years ago, so
Absolutely.
Score one for the humanities is what I say.
Well, it's
yeah. I mean, you seem like you were pretty well adjusted, for lack of a better word, in grad school. I mean, you had a girlfriend eventually. You had like a part-time job.
I eventually had a girlfriend. It's how it works out. Super seminar, comps, foreign language test out of that, girlfriend.
Yeah. No, I mean,
that kind of...
I mean, seriously, it's like after that first year, it's like I got to live a little now. I'm in South Louisiana. I'm an hour and 10 minutes from New Orleans. I think let's open this baby up and see what she can do. I mean, you always had like a big apartment and
you remember where I lived? I mean, it was not the best. I mean, I lived away from campus because I wanted a little bit more space.
Yeah, it was scary, but you had a lot of space.
I mean, right. And I know I remember you moving often because you had things. Did you have an apartment fire at some point?
I had a fire at one point, and then I was I don't know, I was very restless. Like, I moved. There was that one place I had, it was like maybe 2 miles from campus that was very undergrad, and I said, I got to be closer to campus. So then I moved to like the more kind of bohemian part of town, for lack of a better word, and I could just like walk to the library, walk to the Chimes. That was the best place I was at. That was great.
Yeah. But I remember when you moved closer to, you were over there on, what is that, Highland?
Yeah.
And we were doing all this process and everything, and I think I went with you to get like the moving van.
Yeah.
And we got to the point where we're filling out the information, and you look at me and say, "Oh, I don't have a driver's license." I'm like, "Oh, I'm renting the truck to move you." Oh, I see. So yeah, I have to tell one semi interesting, maybe embarrassing story about that, but yeah, I remember that.
Yeah. No, we had some adventures together. I mean, for sure. And I think, again, it's like, I think as I was finishing up, there was a point where I just didn't see anybody anymore. It's maybe like the last 4 or 5 months. I mean, people like Keith Finley left, David Gaudier left.
Yes. And I see Keith every once in a while at the LHA.
Oh, okay, that's cool.
He's at Southeastern.
Yeah, he seems to enjoy it there.
Yes.
But no.
I saw Court at the LHA a couple of years ago. I think that's the last time I saw Court was 18, when it was in New Orleans. Everyone wants to go when it's in New Orleans.
Oh, of course.
So I think that's where I saw him last. And he spoke on our campus one time. We invited him for the Phi Alpha Theta initiation. Okay. And so I had to do the introduction / roast of Court Carney.
Oh my God!
Because I read some course evaluations from Rate My Professor.
Oh yeah.
And so I said, this is what people have said about Dr. Carney, and so comparing him to Seth Rogen and things like that. So
yeah.
But yeah, everyone kind of fell off at the end because I think they're just scrambling to get done, and you write the thing and finish it, your dissertation, and then you're going back and the grad school goes over it with their slide rules and everything like that, and then you have to make your corrections, and you have to lay out 4 copies from your committee and make sure everyone's you make all the changes, and that's intensive too.
Yeah.
So it had those ebb and flow where there'd be lulls, and in the last spring where you defend and you're like, okay, that's it then.
Yeah.
Now what do I do? What do I do now? And they're like, you find a job, you nitwit. I'm like, oh, right.
Yeah.
Like, we kept you here basically for as long as we keep students. So now we push you off into the world, and I'm like, oh, right. Get a job. Yeah. Okay. And then you do that.
Do you feel like it's just totally changed in terms of job prospects and stuff? Like, I don't even know how people go into grad school anymore because the job market is so bad.
Yeah. Yeah, and I haven't looked at the job market. I used to be a regular on, higher ed and all those sites just to see what was out there. And like I said before, for the first couple of years, just to see if I had to find another job. But I haven't checked in a long time. And I can't imagine, Colin. I don't know if you're going through the whole administrative heavy university kind of transformation, where, they say things like, well, paying these big liberal arts professors' salaries is just too much. We can instead, hire instructors at, $2,500 a class. And I don't know. There's a transformation in that way. The Chronicle had an article about that not long ago, and it was, I think, kind of bemoaning the ever-changing, almost corporate model to universities.
Absolutely.
That were taking place, especially that's with online. That's with the whole idea of, and universities have a point, everything you create is theirs. I mean, you use their computer, you work in their office, right? You use their internet connection, you use their online place to deposit all the information for your classes, and if they want to tomorrow, they can take it and say this is ours. Your outrageous salary, which is not at all outrageous, can be better used to bring in more instructors and save some money for the university, while those of us who make these important decisions have to make triple what you make. So it's
right.
I don't know. And as you know, liberal arts is the redheaded stepchild at a lot of schools. You've got some big areas depending on where you work. It could be business, it could be nursing, it could be the music department, or sports. And then there's us. There's us teaching foreign language and history and English, cultural studies. And they're like, oh yeah, we keep you all around too.
Yeah, so, I don't know. I definitely have stopped looking for academic jobs because I just can't get back into that, and I don't really want to teach. So I've been kind of going. It's more like adjuncting for archivists. That's kind of what I've been doing in terms of 1-year jobs, 3-year jobs, and kind of just moving around and trying to get something settled. But sure. I almost feel like everything on a college campus now, it's all sort of on the same level. I mean, if you're trying to be a professor, you're trying to be an archivist or whatever, like any of those kinds of jobs, it's like trying to get a tenure track job now. What I've had to go through to get a 1-year job sometimes, it's unreal. It's like had to give a talk that day, had to meet with the dean, had to meet with the search committee, had to meet with the history faculty, like whatever. Like the process is a tenure track process, and you're not getting tenure. So
right.
They can hire whoever they want. It can be as competitive as they want. I mean, I see jobs now for archivist jobs. It's like you have to give a statement on diversity or like what you've done for social justice. I mean, I'm like, holy shit, like. Are
you doing enough for social justice, Colin? This is a question that should keep you up at night.
I need to throw some paint on a monument here in Richmond or something. I need to.
Are there any left?
Just the only one that matters, Robert E. Lee. He's still up there.
Oh, yeah. I defy anyone to argue that Robert E. Lee descended from an ape. Is that from Gettysburg? Is that picket in Gettysburg? I want to say that's where that was from.
Oh, I don't know, but
yeah, they were talking about Darwin around the campfire. I think that was the guy who played Pickett saying, "I defy anyone to say that Robert E. Lee descended from an ape." Yeah.
He was an angel sent from heaven, is what he was.
Yeah. Well, look, we were ahead of the curve on one thing. Going back briefly to our adventures at LSU, I can remember you and I splitting an adult beverage from a bottle, watching, what was it, Gods and Generals?
Yeah, it was terrible.
Just riffing on the movie. There's a guy online on YouTube who did that exact thing. I'm thinking, why the hell didn't we film it? Because he calls it really neo-Confederate propaganda.
Yeah.
And, he's stopping the movie. We're all around the piano singing and all the slaves are happy and, just they love their condition of involuntary servitude. And it's
so
just
bad. It's so bad.
Yeah, you had to drink to get through it.
Well,
so, yeah.
I had Bud Robertson on the podcast, and
okay.
He was involved with that movie, and I really had to kind of skirt around what I thought of the movie, because it's a really terrible movie. Even just as the history's bad. It's not just dramatically bad. The history's really bad. But he was a cool guy, and I don't think he cared about the movie all that much either way. But he's another guy. We lost him a couple months ago. So these dudes who we maybe saw give a lecture a long time ago, they're really I mean, McPherson's got to be crowding 90 now, I think.
Yes, absolutely.
Even Foner, I think he's probably 80 maybe or close.
Well, you had William Freeling, Michael Holt. These gentlemen are up there.
Yeah, they sure are.
And in my area, Bernard Balin, I think he's still alive and kicking, and still trying to write more different editions of his work on the colony. So yeah.
I think after a while, some of these dudes, like the Edmund Morgans and Bernard Balins, and like they just have this vast index of research that they can just
Sure.
like pull stuff out of and write another book from it. Like the research stopped like 30 years ago, but they essentially
Okay.
just got like a research archive. If they want to even do that.
Absolutely.
I think some of them
Absolutely.
they're just like writing books off the top of their head somehow, and they kind of
Yeah. They finish a book and they say, "There's another book in this book."
It's a 300-page footnote.
Or
Yeah.
maybe two. Yeah. I should have a book of my footnotes.
Yeah, it's, Houghton Mifflin's is going to publish it as is anyway, so might as well send it off to the printer.
Absolutely.
Um,
Yes.
Yeah, so I don't know. You always just seemed like you're pretty steady at the helm. I mean, did you ever have any kind of existential moments like, I don't want to do this, this sucks, and it's too much work, or did that not bother you?
Being the professor part doesn't frustrate me. It's some of the parts of the job that do, and these don't have a lot to do with being a professor of history. It's like institutional stuff that just frustrates you to no end. I bemoan the passion and interest of the students a lot, but I have a lot of students, I should say, I have several students that have passed through and they would succeed anywhere. I mean, not just our small four-year school here in Northwest Louisiana, but I've got some kids here that they probably sleepwalk through college.
Right.
I mean, they are just operating at a different level. It doesn't pay great because you're in the South and you're in Louisiana. But every once in a while you get that affirmation, right? You get the student who says, I switched majors because I was in your class. And that student is now in graduate school in a PhD program, or I didn't think this is the way you could teach history and I appreciate it. And, that's the kind of thing that makes you believe you're on the right track. And it doesn't happen often. Sometimes once in an academic year, you might get a handwritten card from a student. But no, I never, we had a super seminar at the master's level and I was like, wow, this is a lot of work. I think I can do it. Then went to LSU. This is a lot of work. I think I can handle it.
Yeah.
And, every part of the process was challenging, but some of the things that mostly, get me frustrated is about what you have to do in the job. And they're kind of outside the classroom that just, annoy you, dealing sometimes with administration or students or, grade appeals or emails or little things like that. But no, I kind of figured out, I think this is what I wanted to do. And when I got into the classroom, I know some folks got into classrooms and thought, oh dear, or I wasn't ready, or I tried to make it so that I was prepared to get in a classroom by teaching, we had the evening school at LSU. They let us do that when we were grad students. And then I had some, instructor teaching at Lafayette. And so I kind of thought, all right, I think I can do this. And then the other challenge you have is just prepping the classes. You have to teach this class now because, one of our professors just passed away. You've just inherited 3 new classes that, you don't have to teach all one semester, but over the course of about a year and a half. And you're like, oh, okay. So, lecture prep and class prep and all that stuff.
Yeah.
Pick the books and everything. But yeah, it's a great line of work. It's not like normal working. It really is, I think, because you just, outside of what I do at work, I'm still reading stuff about what I do for a living. It's kind of like the books I pick up are about history. I really like the job and the challenges are constant. And you get to do your own work. It's tough to do it sometimes when you're basically so, weighted down with the amount of teaching you have to do, but you've got to find the time. You've got to make the time. I have colleagues that have just said, I'm just going to teach, and I can't blame them. They're just going to do their teaching. They're not productive. They're not productive anymore. And they, when have you last been to a conference? 12 years ago. And who can say to them and fault them for just being so completely worn down that it's tough, but you have to find the time because, as one of my colleagues says, you got to be relevant. You got to get out there and show people that you're researching and that you're, even if it's presenting papers and it's not always publishing is great too, but you got to get out there and challenge yourself and just understand that you connect it to the classroom, whatever you're doing. Yeah. I mean, you know, I'll be writing a conference paper the same semester that I'm teaching the seminar. I'm like, hey, everybody, I got a 15-page paper due too, except it's essentially the script for, you know, my LHA presentation that's due in March. Right. And, you know, you have a paper too, and we're going to go through this process in some ways together.
Well, so, and it's weird too, because where we went, LSU, our experience there was in so many ways not at all representative of what it's like to really be a professor, because they went to Southern Ivies, big schools, sure. Berkeley's, University of Chicago, all that place. So they would kind of be able to do their big lecture, maybe do a seminar, and then they publish one book and they get tenure. And then it's like, for some people, that was it. Like, they weren't teaching new classes, they weren't active in the profession. And at other schools, like smaller schools, kind of like where you are, or like where I'm at, Hampton-Sydney, that doesn't fly. Like, you have to be changing it up. You have to be kind of going on all cylinders all the time. I mean, because you're teaching so much, you've got so many students, even if there's the raw numbers aren't like LSU. If you've got 6 classes with 30 kids, I mean, that's a lot of kids you've got to juggle and everything. So in some ways, I feel like you get your degree, but then what you actually have to do as a professor is totally different. Would you agree? Like,
Colin, I thought at some point you and I were going to write the book that was called, didn't we even joke about what they didn't teach you in graduate school? I mean, you and I were going to co-author this thing.
We still should.
And Colin, that was in 2005 and 6.
Right,
I mean, we had chapters 1 through 4 written. Now imagine, what is this now, 15 years later, what we could come up with. I mean, chapter 7, life coach. I mean, that they don't train you for that. By the way, they don't train you how to be a professor. I mean, I think you touched on that with one of your other guests, the idea that, and I learned this as an undergrad. I asked one of my professors, did they teach you how to do the teaching part? And they're like, no. I said, so how do you do it? They're like, you know the best professors you've had? I'm like, yeah. Do what they do. Like, okay, thank you. Is that your advice? Pretty much.
Yeah.
So that's kind of what I did. But and then you get out there, and then you're dealing with, you know, a student who wants to quit college, a student who has health issues and starts bawling in your office about, you know, what am I going to do? I have a cancer diagnosis. I mean, Mike, they do not teach you this.
No.
And as the things you have to deal with. There's no grad assistant where I am, at least in my department. There's no anyone who's an in-between to filter a process. There's no gatekeeper. They come right up to us and they can talk to us in our offices, and that's great. That's the way it should be. But wow, the things that you have to deal with I mean, angry parents who mistake me for another professor and say, you will tell me how my kid is doing in my class.
That's illegal.
I said, no, I won't. And they said, and then finally, you know, I said, what class is your son in? And they gave me a business class. I said, I am not the professor for this class. Oh, wow. And then the emails kind of stopped. And yeah, it's just those kind of things. It's what makes everything very interesting. And then the great stuff too, the things about, you know, the letter you get, I got accepted to this graduate program, and you know, other progress of your students when, like us in LSU, we were all cast to the wind. That's what happens to them.
Yeah.
You know, we should more effectively track our graduates, because we don't have a master's program. We don't have a graduate program in history. So it's an undergrad program. And then I say, look, if you want to stay in state, I have these recommendations for colleges. If you want to go out of state, you know, this is what you might want to think about. And then they're gone. Yeah. And we often kind of lose track. But right. I mean, we still technically could write that book if you wanted to. I mean, but I mean, it truly was, you know, chapter 1, you know, where to live, and chapter 2, entertainment, and then it'd be a short chapter, and it'd be like, you have no money and no time, to have any kind of fun.
Yeah.
So
no, I mean, I think to some degree it was almost irresponsible what you are not given, the tools you're not made to have. But it's
but they weren't given them either, and so that's their attitude.
I know.
I mean, no one told them, and no one told those who taught them, and so on and so forth. But at some point, the question has to be asked. Do we change this at all?
And I think they need. I think something like your minor fields, and it's like if people got something out of that and they found it useful, that's great. But like if someone had told me maybe you should take some library science classes, as boring as they sounded to me at the time, like you might really be able to use this. This might be a real advantage on the job market, because now it's like I'm in competition with people that have a master's in library science, and I'm never going to get that degree. Mm-hmm. It's just not going to happen. So, but LSU had that program, but like I never remember discussions about that or technology, getting on the cutting edge of technology at LSU. I mean, I don't even think. Yeah. I mean, Royster didn't even have a computer, so.
I know. I don't know how he could have got. I mean, well, he was Royster, but how can you get away with not having a computer? Well, you can't now.
He had to hire somebody to type his last manuscript.
Right, and emails. I mean,
right.
I mean, he had to have the emails filtered to him. Gosh, I must have gotten 45 emails in the first 3 days from students. Imagine what that. Well, it's volume of classes too make a difference, but.
Yeah.
I mean, to survive without email, that just seems insane now.
You can't do it now.
No, you can't do it. No.
So what would you say to? I got it. Like two more questions for you. This is
Sure.
one of the last two, but what would you?
I have a long list of topics we haven't even covered yet. So, shoot, what's that? The beach, movies,
craft brewing.
Orson Welles. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Shoot. Next time.
What would you say to a student who wanted to go to grad school now? Let's say they wanted to go to an LSU or big state school with a PhD program. What would you tell them, or what have you told them? I'm sure you've had some that want to.
Well, I would tell them to start at a master's program, and this is nothing against our institution, but I might send them to a place that is maybe a little bit smaller than LSU. For me, I've had success sending students to UL Lafayette because they have a master's certification program and a master's degree, so that if they wanted to go beyond that, they could do it, or even UL Monroe. And I'd ask them, what do you want out of it? I mean, what do you see yourself doing after you complete your master's? Do you think you want to teach at some level? Do you want to go on for a PhD program? Do you have an interest in something like archives or historical preservation or working at a national park? So that's the kind of information I would try to get from them, and then make a recommendation that way.
Yeah.
And then ask them, what area do you want to study? I mean, what area of history right now interests you? And then go from there. Because, I mean, my colleagues, it's like a who's who of the SEC. It's LSU.
Right.
It's, let's see, who else do we have?
Georgia.
Arkansas PhD. We've got a Mississippi State PhD and an A&M PhD. Texas A&M.
Okay.
So, we're all familiar with and we're connected to our colleagues outside of our own university, so we could give them information about, what institution they might fit in. I mean, are you going to get lost at a big college? Do you want to go to something smaller? Do you want to stay in state or go out of state? What are your own priorities? And go from there. I mean, I don't bring up the whole, you want debt forever? I mean, just that kind of thing. But you should consider, and secondary considerations is the university going to be generous with funding? What is the tuition? And their reputation? What success we've had with other grads and what success based on the faculty there.
Right.
And that's what I would tell them.
Yeah.
Yeah. This is your dream. Make sure you're focused and you really, really want to do it. And it's not going to be easy.
Do you feel like
Yeah.
we were sort of there, like the end of some kind of era, like before the kind of curtain came down on easy jobs? I kind of almost feel like that. Like around
Um,
2008, the curtain came
yeah.
down.
Do you remember that? I mean, when I was working on my master's, so this was 95 to 97. Hearing about the big, great retirement.
Oh,
Everyone apparently was going to retire across academia in the same year,
bullshit.
or within a couple of years, and then they didn't, or they worked until they were carted out, or
Right.
just kept working, and that didn't materialize. So the predictions about this big turnover, maybe in the early 2000s, I don't think happened. And jobs are competitive. I mean, and the ability of universities to offer 10-year track jobs, I think they began to, the schools that could do it did it. The schools that have like UT, University of Texas, has a Borderlands department, a Borderlands history department, or subsection of their department,
Right.
larger than our whole entire department at Northwestern State. So, great for them.
Yeah.
And, but other schools, went through the whole, eliminating departments, Colin. I mean, you're done. I mean, tenure or not, full professor or not. If they say tomorrow the criminal justice history social science department is gone, I'm gone. I mean, that's it.
Yeah, I don't think I've ever
It's-
seen 3 in 1. You've got, you said criminal justice, history, and social sciences.
Right. We made our pact with, we made our deal when we combined the social sciences department with the criminal justice department,
Right.
and it's a strange combination. But we are the only major in the social sciences. So we've got geography and anthropology and political science, but those aren't majors; they're minors. And so
Okay.
we've got a criminal justice kind of at the head of the department. We have a sociologist now running it. That's the chair of our department. But as far as the degree, it's just the history and criminal justice and all their other degrees and specialties.
Okay.
So I don't know. It's definitely a turning point after 2000 with the job market. It certainly is. Was unexpected, and I don't think anyone predicted that. Things were going to remain the way they were in the last century.
I don't think it's really recovered from 2008. And
No.
God knows what the hell it's going to be now. I mean, I don't even feel like the bottom's dropped out of the economy yet. I mean, we're still in kind of like a treading water to a
Yes.
degree, but I'm on the job boards all the time because I have to, and I don't even bother.
Sure.
I don't apply for academic jobs anymore. That ship
Okay.
has sailed. But
Okay.
anything related to what I do is really tough. And
Is this job you have now temporary or
it is.
semi-permanent?
It's
or
funded.
okay.
It's funded till July.
Okay.
So I'm looking all the time because it can
Sure.
take, it can take months to do a job search as a committee.
Absolutely.
So I've never gotten off the job market really since 2010. I mean,
That's difficult. Yeah.
it sucks.
That is challenging.
It's been the worst thing about my career, if you want to call it that. I mean, I've been
It is a career. Yeah.
I've been enjoying the writing I do, the research I do, like all the stuff that academics usually do, but just having a stable job is not clicked yet. But
Okay.
again, I've been lucky to get what I've gotten, and there haven't been any major gaps, so that's been good. But like your story when you were talking about, Anna, can you hold down your agony because I have a call from this search committee that I need to take. Like,
Yeah.
that period, I went through that in like 2005. Like I had multiple offers my first year. I had a tenure track offer, and I had two 1 year or 2 year. One of them might have been a 2 year, but whatever. It's like people were calling me, and there's no like bullshit HR template. Just like a dude called me that knew somebody who knew Bill Cooper or whatever. So I feel like that just doesn't even happen anymore. But we've all got to adjust. But I really just feel like that era of grad school was just some kind of like golden age, and it wasn't back great all the time, but like I just feel like there's been a shift. I don't know. I don't talk to grad students anymore because I just don't encounter them. But I kind of look back on it with a certain amount of nostalgia. Do you?
I do, and I think talking to students, undergraduates, what I tell them is keep your expectations, keep them realistic.
Yeah.
You may not find the job that you think you were meant to get or you kind of plan for yourself. You may teach an area of history if you can get a job teaching grade school or above that some of the secondary courses you took or your minor, you'll end up teaching more of that than you ever thought you would. You may end up in a field that you didn't expect. And certainly that relates directly to our group, or I think the word now is cohort, Colin. The cohort of students who went through LSU, the super seminar started in 97.
Yeah.
How many, or a couple years on either side, what percentage, if we could guess, have academic jobs where they're doing, they're professors in some line of work or they're doing other things. They're what, at LSU Press, or they're working at other kinds of jobs that aren't the maybe what they thought they were getting into. But hey, I mean, it's work. It's using your degree, maybe not in the way that you thought you might. So I think that would be my advice to them: be ready for anything, because everything everything's fluid.
Well, and I think,
and there's no guarantees.
Yeah, for sure. And ask yourself that very basic question: what is it I want to do? Because if you don't want to teach, you're going to be miserable teaching. If you don't, like libraries, you're not going to enjoy working in a library. And some people are able to kind of square the circle or whatever. It kind of sounds like what Anna did. She was like in the engineering department or something, you said?
Administrative assistant in the engineering department.
Yeah, so
and she said, this is not what I heard it very often. This is not what I want to do. I said, I understand, but I said, you got to get involved at some point, and who knows? I was at the point where I thought it may not matter because I don't know if I'll be here that long anyway.
Right.
But it just turned out that these things come along, and when you're a couple in academia, I think it helps you because, I mean, she knows everybody on campus. I know some people. I mean, I introduced myself as like Mr. Anna MacDonald because everybody knows who she is. And they're like, oh, yeah, I guess she was married and that's her husband. He's a history professor. How about that? So, but that's kind of the way I like to operate a little under the radar there and just kind of do my own thing. But certainly if you are as a couple at the university, I think it helps. It helped us because they wanted to keep her in some capacity, and she, proved that she was capable of doing the job, and then proved that she can move to main campus, and that was a great step for her. And you know what, for better or worse, and you know this in your position, for better or worse, as a professor and an academic, librarians across the country said at some point, we're going to be faculty. And so faculty status is conferred upon our librarians.
That's great.
And so, I mean, I'm thinking, what's your teaching? This conversation doesn't go well usually in our home. What's your teaching load this semester, Anna? And then usually there's a scowl. But I mean,
James is sleeping on the couch for a week.
Pretty much. I said, but no, it's for better or worse. It's good for them because they're going through a process that's different than teaching academic folks in different areas, but they are protected that way. So she's now an assistant professor. But you know what? She had to go out and get her degree. She had to get a terminal degree for our university, which was a master's degree, and she did it while she was working full time. And
you're there.
She did it in her late 40s.
Yeah,
so that was pretty good.
I mean, you're there every day as a librarian. I mean, you can't.
You are
get your summers off.
No. We're currently here every day. Yeah. We teleworked for a little bit, and then we went back. But yeah, absolutely. And so there's a production that you have to do as a librarian, the same way when you put your packet or whatever you put together when you go for promotion as a professor. I mean, you have to put that your activity report and all that stuff has to be organized, and you do something a little bit different than saying, well, here's the 5 classes I taught over the last 5 years, and I'm going up for, associate and this and that. So, but yeah, that's a process as well. So, I'm glad she got into what she wants to do.
Yeah.
It just took a while, but it's okay. I mean, it's fine. So.
Yeah. That's great. And it's nice if you can have your shit together by the time you're 50, I think, because 40s could be kind of rough. But I think if, everything's clicking by age 50, you're in pretty good shape, and y'all both have full-time jobs and benefits.
I kind of thought that. I mean, I got promoted to full in 17.
Yeah.
And so that was, let's see, 3 years. I mean, so I'm literally 45, 46, and I'm like, okay. I mean, yeah, I know this is not LSU. I mean, I don't have 3 books done, but I have publications done. I have a pretty impressive presentation record, and I've done it. You're a full professor, you're tenured, and there's a sense of security, at least, unless they convert this place into some kind of correctional facility. And
James, you want to be a guard? First crack at it.
We should call you Dr. Warden. It's like, oh no. Well, yeah, but absolutely. And again, just getting back to what I said at the beginning, there's a lot of gratitude on this end for being able to get involved and stay the course and survive. And it almost feels like you survived it. You survived 2008 and afterwards.
Oh,
and,
yeah.
When your past university president says, well, looks like the legislature may have their way with us. It's like, what? I mean, what does that mean, man?
That doesn't sound good.
That's not good at all. And to come out the other end and say, all right, I can stop going to higheredjobs.com at least for a little while. But I think what these universities are doing, I saw just a last end note on that is footnote on that is they cast a wide net. If you saw, it's like, can you teach Africa, the early American history, the Caribbean, and Canada? If you can. It's like, what? Whoa. So they threw out a wide, this is what I noticed with the last time I was searching for jobs, a really wide net cast.
No, and, I
know. I can't even do maybe like half of one of those you described. So, and now you're thinking, oh, great, there's going to be 300 applicants for this job, and wow. So
they're so specific and yet sometimes so wide open. It's like,
right.
You have to be master of various fields, and I mean, it's almost laughable when I read job descriptions now at some places.
Definitely.
And you go to a place like the AHA board, it's all for Ivy League people. I mean, it's
sure.
Oh, they need a women in gender studies at Cornell. Like, how many people are? There's still going to be a lot of people applying, but I mean,
there will be, right?
There's a certain jobs. It's, forget it. I mean,
so maybe the responsible thing to do, other than to encourage students, is to discourage them. I would be. You have to work on the social justice part, obviously, and for your next job, career path. I have to work on saying. Yeah, look, this goes back to at Appalachian State. I mean, literally, when I talked to Tim Silver about PhD program, he had a prepared handout that said, should we be sending students to PhD programs? I'm like, where did you get this, man? He's like, oh, I got a pile of them. And I'm thinking, I read it, and I'm like, thanks very much. I read it, but I'm going to go on. Is that okay? And he was like, okay. But
yeah.
You did read that, did you? I'm like, yes, I read your pamphlet. Maybe we should just discourage students, scare the bejesus out of them about student loans you'll never be able to pay back.
Yeah.
Complete lack of respect among the students and colleagues. What else did I say? Low pay already.
People don't listen. People don't listen anyway. I mean,
soul crushing teaching load. All that stuff.
Yeah. I don't know. I like to kind of use advice as a conversation starter and stuff, but like I've found it personally to be almost useless with most people because they're going to either do the opposite or they don't care. I mean, I didn't know what the hell I was getting into at grad school. I I just kind of went for it, and some things I regret, other things worked out, so I finished, and here I am. But I at the same time, I just feel like it's a different world, and in terms of at least teaching jobs, the odds are really against you getting a great teaching job now. I feel.
Right.
But I'm not in that situation anymore, so thankfully I don't have any students coming up to me to ask advice. But the last thing I want to ask you is,
Sure.
what do you think of Nackadish?
Oh, it's a charming town. It's 18,000, 40,000 in the parish. It has a front street, a few blocks that are resemble the French Quarter. We're right there on Cane River, which is the old main channel of the Red River until the Red River shifted its course a little bit to the east. So, we've got two bodies of water. We've got the old Spanish lake, Black Lake they used to call it. That's now Sibley Lake, named after John Sibley. It's someone I've researched a little bit about. And
Civil War guy, right?
No,
before
okay. Before that. No, probably related to all those folks. Yeah,
Okay,
I think
okay.
he talking about a son or grandson. Sibley was an Indian agent here, Massachusetts guy, as a matter of fact.
Ah, there you go.
Doctor in the Revolution, had a little sojourn in North Carolina, and then came down to the Nackadish area for reasons that we still aren't clear. Anyway, so yeah, it's a small town. Not, I want to say typical small town, but it has areas that are, I would say, somewhat segregated among races, as far as, there's
Right.
sections that are economically struggling. We elected an African American mayor just 2 weeks ago,
Okay.
from a longtime incumbent, and this is reflective of some change that's happening. And, my attitude is, if you vote out someone who's been in office a while, let's see what happens. This is a great change. And, if they're not good at the job, we'll hopefully vote someone else in. But it's got its charm. It's lacking in some things, like, Italian restaurants and some box stores. But I never personally needed those things. It was a bit of a shock to my wife, who grew up in St. Louis, and sprawling metropolis of St. Louis, but
Right.
we're an hour from Shreveport, where you can find different options for choices of retail and everything like that. I like it. It's quiet. It's a town with a college, Colin. It's not a college town.
Yeah.
It's a town with a college, if you understand,
Sure.
by the lack of college kind of businesses and
Nightlife.
Extracurricular activities and nightlife
Right.
and things like that. Front Street, our charming little street that the cobble brick streets closes unless it's a restaurant at 4 or 5 o'clock. And that's
Right.
the way it is.
Yeah.
It was a fight to get that fangled electricity devices on the streets to replace, gas lamps or whatever were here before. And some folks like to keep it that way. And we've got a separate area we call the Strip that has more of the commercial area that crosses the river. So you have, an actual chain restaurant and then a Walmart and some places like that. But we're right in the middle of Cane River country, and for the history of this area and for the country, it's just fascinating. I mean, the Cane River was a book, and you've got just the Cane River folks who live along there, who've lived along here for generations,
Yeah.
for hundreds of years. It's just and it's wide open. There's a lot of sparsely settled areas, and it's just really unique. So I enjoy it.
Yeah.
And if you don't want a lot of distractions, it's good. If you don't need to have a lot of box stores or other kinds of things and the traffic and all that, some people think it's tough. It's tough to be single here.
I bet, yeah.
I that's one of those kind of towns, I think. I mean, I had a lot of colleagues who were like, I don't know if I'm going to be able to make it here. And so there's that element to it. But
Right.
no, a quaint place, not without its problems, not without ways that we can improve ourselves. Definitely, it's still riding the Steel Magnolias connection. That was 30 years ago.
Was it shot there?
Shot there.
Okay.
Here, I should say. Yeah. The Steel Magnolia house in the movie is the Steel Magnolia house. I mean, it's a bed and breakfast.
Okay.
The team in the movie were called the Devils. We're the Demons. And that festival where you see everyone at night out at the lights, that's the way we light up. It's called the City of Lights. We light up the riverside, all these lights. And that scene in the movie down by the river, that's Cane River. And that's Nackadish. And they cross that bridge in that final shot by the old Ford dealership that's not there anymore downtown. And when you see him riding the motorcycle, to go to the hospital at the very end, they're crossing the bridge across Cane River. And I mean, it's a real place.
Yeah.
They call it Chinkapin, I think, in the film, and that was a reference to the Indian.
Right.
So yeah, it's a real place. We're famous for the lights that get lit up from around Thanksgiving until New Year's, and it draws a lot of people in. So, and for Northwestern State as well.
Yeah, well, I've looked it up on Wikipedia a few times. It looks pretty cool. I mean, I never went up there when I was in Louisiana, but not to be confused with Natchitoches, Texas.
Nackadish is our sister. That's where Court is. That's Stephen F. Austin. Yeah, that's about 90 miles from us, I want to say. I think it's about an hour and a half to get the border. I mean, we're in Nackadish Parish, one parish over to the west is Sabine, and there you are.
Okay.
In Texas. I mean, it's a straight shot down the Spanish Camino Real, and you're on your way towards Texas and cross the border. Yeah. So if you're outdoorsy, it's fantastic. I mean, it's
I bet.
Got the lakes and the water. It's nice.
Johnny Cash used to do a lot of fishing around there with his buddy Johnny Horton, and
all right.
They invented some kind of lure or hook or something in there. Something was called like the Cane River Bait Company or something like that.
Oh, all right. Okay. They opened a brewery a couple years ago.
There you go.
They took an old, what do you call it, the city warehouse where they store sand in case it snows or something, or that kind of place. And then to their credit, they repurposed the building, and they make decent beer. And so that's nice. And hey. It's where I live, so
given kind of where you lived in Baton Rouge, I mean everything's kind of a step up, right? I mean it's like Apocalypse Now, kind of where you were living there for a little while.
Well, you were here after Katrina, right?
No, I got out just before. I think it was a couple days before.
Okay, Katrina's August of 2005. Yeah, it was a different city for a while. And then when we moved up here, we didn't go back to South Louisiana for years. Right. And we made it a point of going, I think we may have been going to New Orleans. We passed through Baton Rouge, and the both of us were like, holy cow. I mean, every green space where there was nothing as you came off of Burbank or you came off of Highland, there were apartment buildings, brand new and new houses, and it was just insane. It's
so
crazy.
So congested now. Like
we passed through it. We passed through it when we're heading to Florida, which is as often as we can. So we have to go through Baton Rouge, and Interstate 10 is Main Street in Baton Rouge. It's the
I know.
road people take from getting to one side of the town or city to the other. So yeah.
It's
fun.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it sounds like everything's worked out for you, and you've kind of been at this place for a while, and you've gotten settled in, and you can't ask for much better. You've got job security in a place you like. I think you've won.
Well, yeah. I'm grateful, very grateful.
That's
no
good.
doubt about it. So and very pleased with how things are going. So it's great, and I'm glad we had a chance to catch up, and to all the lost LSU folks at least. I get a chance to reach out and find some more of them, and I've been curious about them ever since you first touched base. I thought I am now thinking of these folks and where they are.
Again, just thanks. It's been great catching up. And
same here.
Stay in touch. So.
Well, keep it up. These are enjoyable. I mean, it's something now that when I have some time, I'm going back and certainly when you have those heavy hitters, I'm thinking, yeah, I've got to listen to some of these. And I mean, you're just great at the question and letting people talk and feeling comfortable. So it's a great thing to have. I really hope you keep at it.
Yeah, I go back and forth because it's not a money-making venture at all, but
sure.
Sometimes when I look at who I've had on, I'm just like, damn, I mean, in terms of American historians, again, there's some people I've reached out to that I've never had, but I mean, Ed Ayers, I was able to have him on twice. I mean,
that's great.
So it's been a lot of fun, and they're my people, so I think I can keep getting the historians on and try to branch out a little, but everyone's got different perspectives. So again, it's been 15 years, so in some ways I feel like a lot has happened, but we just kind of picked up where we left off, essentially. Oh, again,
thanks, Colin.
Yeah, thank you, and I'll be in touch. I'll let you know when it's ready, and if you ever want to talk, just hit me up.
Okay, sounds good.
All right, that was my talk with James MacDonald. I hope you enjoyed that. Remember, all of these podcasts are free. You can check out all 180 plus episodes. It's on Spotify and Stitcher and Apple Podcasts. So if you like the podcast, you can check out all those back episodes on Libsyn or elsewhere and tell someone else about it and tell them that it's free and they can pick and choose in the back catalog, and hopefully we'll find some that they like. And if you want to support the podcast, you can contribute on Patreon. It is patreon.com/American Rambler. You can also buy my book, Marching Masters, Slavery, Race, and the Confederate Army During the Civil War, available through University of Virginia Press. I think it's still going for $39.50 new, but you can get a copy from me online for $30. Just reach out to me on Twitter or contact me by some other means, but Twitter is definitely the easiest way to do that. So help me out, help out the historians, and in the meantime, I will be busy revising my Johnny Cash book, which I hope will be completely finished by next year. All right, I hope you are doing okay. I will be back with you soon with a new podcast and a new interview. Take care. Bye.